Call us whatever you want. We really have run out of ideas. Our next guest, I'm thrilled to have him on the show. First guest back, Jordan Peterson. We were really happy. Yeah. And we haven't had this man on here in a while. Of course, you know his show on Compound Media, The Anthony Cumia Show. You can follow him on the Twitter at The Cumia. Do I have it right? The Cumia Show. I don't know because he's constantly getting banned. His book, apparently, while we were gone, was banned from where was it banned?
I get banned from everything. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but my Compound Media is, and the Cumia Show is. But I don't run those things. I'm not responsible enough to post nice enough things on Twitter. So I'm constantly being banned from social media. Hence the title of the book, Permanently Suspended. Yes.
Okay, that's what I might have had wrong. The book is not actually permanently suspended. This is where the comedy comes into play, correct?
You're right. It's permanently suspended. It's pretty much the story of my early kind of life out in California with my maniacal father, having fun with guns and doom buggies and sex, and then coming out to New York and getting into the broadcasting business up in Boston and back in New York. It's a fun read.
To be clear, you were having fun with your father with guns and dune buggies, but not sex with your father.
No. Although my dad did hook me up with a girl, a 19-year-old girl, when I was 13, and that was I said adios to my virginity back then. In the it was different times in the 70s.
Sounds like the charmer. Let me. I cannot imagine that at PTA. I found them behind the F block, and they were. Oh yeah, I set that up. You like that? What I did there, huh? So this book came out while we were on hiatus. Tell us a little bit. Well, I know you just mentioned, is it sort of autobiographical, or is it like Alice Cooper's autobiography, where it's one chapter autobiography, the next chapter golf tips?
Which is really weird. Yeah, no, it's not like that. It's a little autobiographical in that I do cover a little bit of my youth. I don't go through the whole thing, but I cover some things that kind of give a little more insight on why I'm the way I am now. Mm-hmm. Just craving attention and trying to diffuse any uncomfortable situation with humor. That's pretty much what I cover in there. But then most of it is about the Opie and Anthony show and my relationship with Opie, my on-air partner for 20 years. Which ended, disastrously in 2014.
I think it would be fair to say that.
Yeah.
But you've done really well for yourself. But I remember when that happened, I was going, man, it was kind of at the beginning. Remember back then, the outrage cycle wasn't the same as it was now. You were kind of one of the first public hangings with that. Yeah,
I really, that's what it was. I didn't expect it to happen. It was, I tweeted something about I was assaulted in Times Square by a woman of color. And I commented about it on Twitter, and I gave a little social commentary about the situation when I also talked about my assault. That got me in trouble with the people at Sirius Satellite Radio, and they fired me for it. Right. So, yeah, it was right at the beginning of this whole outrage thing, this false outrage thing. So, I was one of the early veterans of that, and I was able to build this up from that, starting in my basement with a studio I'd built years prior, because I always loved the medium. I liked being able to have video and show clips and just kind of get on the air on the internet when some news story would happen. And thank God I had that. It was like a lifeboat when I got fired, because when you get fired for things like that, no one wants to touch you. So we started this whole thing, and then it just kind of evolved with other personalities that do shows here that also kind of fit that mold of unhireable, undesirable, whatever it would be.
Well, first off, I think you're the only person to get mugged in Times Square in the last 2 decades. I don't know how that happens right next to the Olive Garden and the M&M shop. He's walking around the M&M shop.
I was mugged by Elmo.
Yes, you were mugged by Elmo and the TKTS stand. And I remember when I heard about it, I remember talking with a friend, and they told me this story. I said, wait, you mean like Opie and Anthony? He said, wait. This is a shock jock. They wouldn't fire him for... What are you talking... I didn't believe it until I read up on the story. So that was early on. It was very surprising. It would be like hearing that Howard Stern had been fired because, he spoke ill of a stripper.
I didn't even tweet anything close to 99% of what I was saying on their airwaves, on satellite radio's airwaves, for a decade. Go back to some of my shows. Oh my God, I'm a horrible person. And the tweets, there was really nothing. They were very innocent, and like I said, a little too much social commentary, and people didn't want to hear it. And again, that false outrage snowballs once the media gets a hold of it. And, they have the power to put you under.
Again, the book is permanently suspended. It's available on Amazon and wherever a Barnes & Noble still exists. The one near where I live is now a Barnes & Noble cafe, so they don't even sell books.
Yeah.
It's like, just at this point, just call it cafe. Just ditch the Barnes and the Nobles at this point. But I think it really is interesting to kind of see the evolution, because I remember satellite radio. They were saying, well, now it's not going to have the commercials. You completely unedited, uncensored. You can say whatever you want. And then sure enough, that's not what happened. That changed. And then people sort of said, well, online, people can do and say whatever they want with podcasts. And now that's not really the case, as you see with deplatforming, with iTunes and with YouTube. So it seems like when people think there's going to be this completely free and open medium, we see this natural evolution. We were just talking about this before the break.
Yeah.
I think that's why you had the foresight to do a subscription model like we did, as opposed to being on Patreon, where, again, it's supposed to be free and open, and we see that it's not.
I've called it having a piano over your head, strung by a little wire, and that is the powers that be that could cut it at any moment. There's always someone you have to go to deliver your show to the people.
Right.
There's always some channel. And I love when you hear, well, make your own platform. Do that. Go out on the poles and string your own fiber optic cable and make a cable company. Like there's certain things you just can't independently do.
Right.
So you have to take as many people out of the mix as possible. So going to subscriber-based worked well for me, because I had already had a very popular show, so I had a base of people that were willing to subscribe. It's not like any Tom, Dick, or Harry can get out there and make a subscriber-based show.
Hey!
But, yeah, yes. Well,
we're doing all right.
One of the few, the proud.
I think this really is the only show that came up this way, and
yeah.
to your point, we said we're going to use the paywall model. I think now they're calling it over the top. That didn't exist when we started. They're like over the top content. I'm like, are you talking about that? Talking about that arm wrestling movie? What are we? But that's what they call it now, OTT. But this Mug Club, for us, we said we're not going to remove free content. We're going to create more premium content and still use YouTube and social media, granted, for as long as we can before we're banned, to build it up. But you already had a serious following. Man, that show was huge.
Yeah, that was that's why the model worked so well for us. And like I said, take as many people out of the mix. You can be deplatformed. We've seen it happen with Alex Jones and Laura Loomer and stuff. You disappear. Gavin McInnes, who is just an awesome guy, a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I love him as a person and as a personality, who was like one of the victims of his own talent. He's one of the greatest satirical comedians I've ever seen. And too many people that get outraged didn't get his joke. Didn't get the joke. He was literally Hitler. And he's like, he comes to parties at my house. He's got his family, his beautiful wife and kids, and he's the nicest guy. And he's painted as literally Hitler because of the bull outrage that goes on now.
Right. Yeah. I still, when people said Gavin got in trouble for his antics, I said, which one? It's take your pick.
Yeah.
We would get on and do these French Canadian characters, and he would do a Scottish character, and we would. I don't know if he was here in studio. I think I was in New York. It made other people uncomfortable because we were being brutal with each other, and he doesn't break character, and the Jean-Guy Tremblay doesn't break character, and people go, "Oh, is this something we need to separate?" And afterwards, like, no, don't keep rolling. Yeah. That is the show, and he's one of the few people who gets it, and not in a self-important way, like kind of a lot of these sort of Andy Kaufman hipsters. Like, it still has to be funny with Gavin.
Yes, absolutely. Comedy is suffering like I've never seen it suffer before, because comedians are petrified to do their act, and these social justice warriors, or whatever you want to call them, are out there just looking. They're searching like a German wolf pack of submarines, looking for a target to then tape and take out of context and take without the context of comedy and just bury them.
Right.
We see it with Louis C.K. Of course, look, Louis got some sexual proclivities that seem a little odd to some people. I don't care.
Right.
But you cannot deny the guy is funny. These same people that want him crucified were calling him a genius a couple of years ago. And he just wants to get back into the game. Right. There are people that don't want you to have a career. They don't want you to do what you enjoy and are very good at doing because they are outraged at some inane, moronic thing that didn't happen to them.
It's true. It doesn't matter who you are. No one is safe because if there isn't somebody who acts up, maybe in a couple of months they go, what about that kid in the red hat who smiled at the toothless Indian meth head? Can we be mad at him? It's literally a kid. When I watched it, people were praising me for going, you didn't jump the gun, thanks. I said, no, you know why? Because I watched the original clip and I said, who cares? Like, it just doesn't.
Right.
I wasn't on the outrage machine from the right. Some conservatives were like, oh, I can't believe it. No, he wasn't being assaulted. He was sitting there smiling while this guy offbeat, he just came back from his opium quest. And I don't care if I get in trouble. Like, oh, he's a veteran. Apparently, I don't know this for sure. Apparently, he was a refrigerator repairman and he went AWOL twice.
Allegedly.
But, you're right. They are looking just for outrage. Hey, by the way, while we're talking about this, how affected have you been by the government shutdown? We're asking everyone today.
Oh, my goodness. We're on backup power here in New York City. It's like Armageddon. I swear, I don't even have to play video games out there because it's just a post-apocalyptic nightmare out there. Yeah. No, I haven't been affected whatsoever by it. And I know the employees that aren't getting a paycheck, they are affected.
Sure.
If you take the emotion out of it and go pure numbers, the amount of jobs Trump has put back into this country far outweigh the amount of people that are put out of work by the shutdown. That's a math thing, not an emotional thing. So calm the down, because people will be like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the workers.
You know what? I know you do. I'm fine with it. It's one of those things. I'm like, listen, I think it's 800-something thousand. Let's be honest. Maybe 400,000. Like, we could probably make them part-time anyway. This is just a good time for... Not all of them. Anthony didn't say it, by the way. He didn't say it in Times Square. I'm saying it. For me, I really noticed. I felt the sting, and I recognized my privilege when my Amazon Prime order was going to be half a day late, and I was,
oh my God,
what is happening here? The post office can't pick up the slack.
You look at your phone and go, but you said noon.
This is true. That being said, let's be honest. It is infuriating when you're expecting a package and someone just screws it up with Amazon and you call them like, well, we can send another one out tomorrow. I needed it for today. It doesn't help.
It really is. I remember when I was growing up, that was way, way back when, kids, when I was growing up. If you got a packet, it was an event at your house.
Right.
If a package showed up. Now on a daily basis, I'm trying to unlock my door, just kicking smiley boxes all over my stoop. Like, what do I need so much stuff for now to be delivered when... it was something I sent from a cereal box when I was a kid. And I'd wait for 6 to 8 weeks for a delivery of a Tony Tiger thing that swam in the bathtub or something. It was a big event. Yes. And now on a daily basis, you're greeted at your door by boxes smiling at you.
I blame the recommendations. And especially because we purchase, props and wardrobe for the show. We do a lot of sketches. I get recommendations that don't even make sense. And I say, yeah, I need that. That's how my mother ends up with, I swear to you, a purple ball gag in her cart. And she's, wait, this was shipped at my house. Why'd that happen, Stephen? She's French Canadian.
There are boxes that just sit on my table or desk and like they're unopened.
Right.
Like, did I really need it if I don't even know what the hell is in it? Everyone has turned into one of those maniacal OCD shopper women.
Right. It's true. Yeah. And you used to just avoid them in the mall when they were walking with the hand weights. Now we are all the mall walkers.
We're all now mall walkers in our own home.
Let me ask you this. We don't have a ton of time. So you do your show. You have Compound Media. You have this book that's out now. How do you balance kind of the work life, personal life, especially as more of a caustic figure, the stress in the job? And you talked about kind of when you were a kid, if you could go back in time and talk to your teenage self, what would you tell him? What would be the single most important piece of advice outside of, listen, there's a government shutdown looming?
Oh, my God. First thing, I would just make sure I get out, buy Amazon. That would be my first thing. AMZN. You'll understand it in the future.
Right.
No, I think I don't know if I would have any advice. I kind of like the direction my life took. Obviously, I've made some major mistakes before and after getting into broadcasting, but I do kind of like the direction it took. I've always used humor and satire to diffuse situations, so that's worked well for me over the years. The separation of life and this kind of life, people really get this misconception that you're not putting on an act for the most part.
No.
But you're not this person 24 hours a day. You'd burn out in a second, and people would just beat the crap out of you in stores if you were this obnoxious constantly.
I have been beaten up in a store. Thanks for bringing up a sore spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, prime example. But getting the show out of my basement was a good thing. You know, when I'd be sitting on my couch at 11 p.m. and Gavin would come walking up the stairs just completing his show, and we'd talk about stuff at 11 at night. I kind of needed a private life. When the Legion of Skanks, they do their show, they did it from my basement, and they literally brought their Legion of Skanks to my house, like fans, and then they'd be in my pool. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I ought to get a studio in New York City. So we did that. And separating it is kind of easy. I'm constantly on the search for material. I'm always going through social media and news sites and whatnot for the next day's show. But for the most part, I calm down. I play a lot of video games at home. I love, doing that and getting out with friends. We went out last night with the staff here and stuff from Compound and just having a good time. And like blowing off steam is really important in this business. I
agree. And I've been kind of learning that here more recently as I've had to learn to take time for myself. But
there you go.
I will say this. The first time you were on this show, we had Nick DiPaolo on not that long before. And I remember talking about stand-up and the state of stand-up. And I remember Nick and even Jim Norton saying, well, you know what? I understand what you're talking about with the colleges. I don't think it's going to hit the clubs. And all of them now are coming back. You were the only one who said, this is coming everywhere. All of them have since revisited the show, 2-3 years later and said, you guys were right. This is exactly what's happening. There's no safe haven anymore for comedians. Final question. I know you're a gun guy, right? And I know you have a Walther PPK.
Yes. I love the Walther.
Beautiful. Is it a Smith & Wesson licensed Walther PPK? Do you know? Or is it Inner Arms?
No, it's not the Smith & Wesson.
Okay, because they licensed it for a while, and I wanted to say this: if you're in New York, I don't know what the laws are. Walther just started actually manufacturing them again in-house.
Awesome.
And they were gone for a while. I have a Smith & Wesson licensed one. I know I'll get in trouble. It jammed all the time. Could never use any hollow points. So it might. I know you're a big fan of the firearm. Maybe we can get you one out there in New York. And the fit and finish on it is so much nicer that it's coming out of Walther's actual plant these days.
Let me tell you about New York gun laws.
Yeah.
I think the only way you could get a pistol in New York now is if you're an abortion doctor and want to kill a 9-month-old. That's pretty much the only way they'll allow you to have a gun in New York.
I'm sure there's some leftover people from the SS at Walther, who are still in the back room who are like, that sounds like a plan. All right, the book is permanently suspended. I want to make sure I got this right. Not to be confused with actually being permanently suspended. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course Compound Media, the show, I think is it 4 to 6 Eastern?
4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time on compoundmedia.com, And we got shows all day long also, really good funny personalities. And, it's a great, open, free platform where people can actually express themselves.
There are great shows, but of course you are the king over there. And hopefully soon we'll get you in studio. If we can't get the firearm to you in New York, we'll go to the shooting range and we'll do a video on it. I think you're going to love these new PPKs.
I would love it.
Thank you, Mr. Cumia. We'll be back.